Okay. Game on.
Shane was the first one, well, except for mine, and he gave me a rhinoceros.
It's a rocket there in Casino.
Okay, I don't know the Latin part.
It's the white rhino, and we're the most extinct species on the planet.
This is right.
All right.
Well, rhinoceros. I'm going to do a nod to Sherry. World Rhino Day is September 22nd. So, and if you want to see a rhinoceros in person, you can go to the Peoria Zoo. They have two 14-year-old white rhinos. You can go to St. Louis, and they have black rhinos there, and the admission is free.
Very good. Or you can go to church on Sunday.
But rhinos date back millions of years. They date back to the Miocene era. And the name is from Greek. It's from rhinos, which means nose, and ceros, which means horn. Rhinos are mammals like us. They're herbivores, and they eat over 100 pounds of vegetation a day.
Yeah. You don't eat vegetation.
Well, it depends on what kind of rhino we're talking about as to what they eat. They have one or two horns. That's the distinctive characteristic. It's made out of keratin, and keratin is a protein that we have in our hair or in our fingernails. And like us, the rhino's horn can keep growing as long as it's not cut in the base where the horn grows. If it gets down, like our nails, if we get into the nail bed, then the nail won't grow. If it gets down to where the base is on the rhinoceros, then the horn won't grow anymore. They get their horns when they're a year old, and the horns can be from 8 inches to 24 inches long. And I'm a visual learner, so 8 inches on me is about from right here to my fingertips. And 24 inches long, if I stretch up as high as I can, it's from my fingertips to about my shoulder.
Like it.
They have thick skin, and it's kind of like an armor. The folds in the skin kind of fold over one another like a lattice, and that's what makes it so that the skin is really tough. And it can be a half inch to 2 inches thick, and it's the thickest here at the shoulder, and then back here by the thigh.
That sounds about right.
And then they've got really sensitive skin. They have blood vessels that are close to the surface, and they can be easily scarred. So rhinos soak in the mud or roll in the dirt. So it fits you well.
I consider that authorization.
No.
No.
They do that to protect them from sunburns and insect bites. Insects are one of the things that they have to watch out for. All rhinos are gray or brown in color. The white rhino is paler than the others, but he's still not white. And except for this Sumatran rhino, they're nearly completely hairless, or just a little bit of hair on them, except for up here on the ears, and then back here on the tail. And then they found fossils where they're covered in really dense fur, and they think that that's kind of what they were like a long, long time ago. They don't have that ability. I mean, they don't have that now. The Sumatra rhinos are the ones that are most closely like that today. Their feet, they have 3 short toes, and they have broad, blunt nails. And the middle one is what they balance on.
Really? I didn't know that.
solitary except for white rhinos, and white rhinos can live in groups of up to 10, and it's mainly mothers and their calves. And they have very poor eyesight, but they make up for that with their sense of hearing and their sense of smell. And if you see any of the programs on PBS or any of the nature programs, you'll see what they call oxpeckers or egrets. And those are birds that stay near rhinos and giraffes and elephants, and they pick off ticks and fleas and everything like that is on a rhino's skin.
Your job.
They have really small brains.
Oh. That's not even funny.
Yes. That was perfect. Thank you.
They're only about 18.7 ounces. And again, I'm a visual learner, so a chicken breast is about the size of your fist. It's about 6 inches. So if you get 3 of them together, that would be about the size of their brain. When these guys get pregnant, they're pregnant for 15 to 16 months. So that's a year and like 3 or 4 months. So I have not ever been pregnant, but I know people that have been, and they're very thankful when it gets to the end of the 9 months. So I can't imagine what they would be like if it was longer than that. They have a calf when they're 5 to 7 years old, and they give birth every 2 to 5 years. And that's how long that the mother will take care of their baby. And then when they get ready to be pregnant again, then they're kind of on their own. The calf is vulnerable for the first year. That's when they can get killed by lions or tigers or crocodiles. But after that, their skin is so thick that nothing can really attack it after that. The only thing that they really have to watch out for after that first year is people. People are the ones that have been poaching them for their rhino horns forever. And mainly the horns are used in medicine. The Chinese and Vietnamese people think that rhino horns can cure practically anything. There was a whole list. In fact, it was about that long of an age. So I didn't want to bore you, so I didn't write down everything that they could cure. And then some really fun facts is that adult rhinos poop 50 pounds of poop a day.
Yep.
And when they pee, they can pee from 16 feet away. So
Shane cannot.
And they use the poop and the pee to mark their territories.
Yep.
That's the way that they communicate with one another. Each rhino has a different scent, and that's the way that they communicate with one another. And they can live from 35 to 50 years, and they have a speed of 30 to 35 miles an hour.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Okay.
Not me.
Okay. And then there's 5 or 6 species of the rhinos. There's African rhinos, and that includes your black rhinos and your white rhinoceros. And sometimes they break the white rhinoceros into northern and southern rhinos. And then your Asian rhinos are your Sumatran rhinos, your Javan rhinos, and the greater one-horned rhino. And I did not know that these guys were as big as they were. The Sumatran rhino is the smallest one. It has 2 horns, and it's the only one that's really hairy. You can find it on the Indonesian island of Sumatra. And they live in dense tropical forests and in lowland swamps. Their height is between 3.3 feet and 5 feet. So 3.3 feet would be about right here. And I'm about 5'3", so about as tall as what I And then their length is between 6.5 feet and 15 feet. And then their weight is 1,320 pounds to 2,090 pounds. So 2,000 pounds is a ton. So these guys can weigh up to a ton, and they're the smallest ones. The Javan rhino is found only in Ujung Kulon National Park in Java, Indonesia. And they live in the tropical forests and mud wallows. Their height is 4.6 feet to 5.8 feet. They have a length of 10 to 10.5 feet, and their weight is 1,984 pounds to 5,071 pounds.
Wow.
And then the black rhino lives in East and Southern Africa. He's hook-lipped, and it's triangular shaped. So if you think of a triangle, you've got your base, and then, so that's the way that the mouth is. And it eats dense, woody vegetation, and that jaw helps him pull up and eat and get the vegetation that he needs. And he is 4.6 to 5.9 feet. He has a length of 9.2 to 12.3 feet, and he weighs 1,760 to 3,090 pounds.
Wow.
And he has 2 horns. And then the great one-horned rhino, or the Indian rhino, is 5.75 feet to 6.5 feet. The length is 12.07 feet to 12.47 feet, and weight is 4,000 to 6,000 pounds. And they eat, they're in tropical brushland, grasslands, and savannas. So they're mainly grass eaters. And then the white rhino is square-lipped. And they think that the reason why the white rhino is called that is because of the Dutch name wheat, or the African name wide, and both of them mean wide. It has a hump on its neck and a long face, and eats grass, and it's 5 to 6 feet in height. The length is 11.2 feet to 13.8 feet, and the weight is 3,080 pounds to 7,920 pounds. And I just looked up populations, because these are extinct and endangered animals. And the last time that they did that was in 2021. And then they just updated and did this again August 7th, 2025. So this is recent information. The global population is only the ones that are in the wild or that are in national parks. They don't count the ones that are in zoos. The black rhino went from 6,195 to 6,788. So they're up. The great one-horned rhino went from 4,014 to 4,075. So their population is up. And they're a really great story, because at the beginning of the 20th century, there were only 200 total at the beginning of the 20th century. The Sumatran rhino went from 34 to 47. The Javan rhino went from 76 to 50. And the white rhino went from 15,752, and that's down from 15,942. And the way that they're protecting the rhinos is that they are cutting off their horns. And I told you that as long as they don't cut the base of the horn, that they're okay. So they're doing that to try to keep the poaching down. They also have what's called a management limitation, and that's where they will allow people to come in and hunt, and they have a set certain number that they can kill. And then one thing that is really relatively new is they're doing putting radioactive material in rhinos' horns, and that way, if anybody tries to take the horns to an airport or out of the country, they're going to get nabbed. It said that 91 rhinos were killed in South Africa in the first quarter of 2025, and that 2/3 of illegal rhino horns are coming out of South Africa. And now for the Bible part. Rhinos are not specifically named in the Bible. There's nowhere or no passage that specifically says the name rhinoceros or rhino. So I went and I was doing my Bible nerd thing, and the scholars have a debate going on. They went back, and there's a Hebrew word called ra'im, and in the King James Version, that was translated to be unicorn. And the modern translations, they translated it to be wild ox or an auroch. And an auroch is an extinct type of wild cow. There's 9 verses that use that word. I'm not going to read those all, but the description of them is strength and a single horn. And some of the scholars say this is a rhinoceros. Some of them say no, this is an elephant or something else besides the rhino. And it's used in those verses to symbolize strength and power and perhaps the power of God. And then the one that I really thought symbolized the rhino is Ephesians 6:10-18. And if you want to turn there, that's fine. That's called the armor of God. And I'm going to read it. So it says, "Finally be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And after you have done everything to stand, stand firm then with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to all this, take up the shield of faith with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, and pray in the Spirit on all occasions with all kinds of prayers and requests. With this in mind, be alert and always keep on praying for all the Lord's people." Well, the first thing that they mentioned in that was the belt of truth. And a belt goes around your middle. And basically that's where everything else fits up and goes from when you're preparing for battle. It goes from your middle out. So the belt of truth is preparation for action. And it's also a binding force or a connection. And we've saw with the white rhinos that they have a connection when they're in a group. And the belt of truth is honesty and integrity. The breastplate of righteousness, I think of the thick skin that protects from external threats. And that is, the breastplate of righteousness is moral and spiritual integrity, and it protects believers from evil. And then the next one that's mentioned is the feet fitted with the readiness of the gospel of peace. And I feel like that is a rhino, because when he's attacked, he stands fast, he doesn't give up. And peace from accepting Jesus and in sharing it comes through the gospel. And then the next one that's mentioned is the shield of faith. And again, the rhino's skin, it protects them and keeps them grounded. And we can trust in God's promises and believe in his power. And then the next one is the helmet of salvation. And a rhino's horns protect his mind. And that's what God's word does for us. And then the sword of the Spirit, a rhino's horns are his strength, and he uses them for offense and for defense. So rhinos symbolize strength and endurance, and this can represent the strength and empowerment of God when putting on the full armor of God. And I heard I was watching Lawrence Welk yesterday, and they said that when you sing, you pray twice. So this is the song that came to mind when I was doing my research for this. My God is so big, so strong, and so mighty, there's nothing my God cannot do.